There comes a moment in every person's life when he must look at the world he's been taught to accept and ask, who built this belief for me? Most never do. They move through life quietly obeying invisible rules, limits written not in law but in habit, in fear, in quiet resignation. They accept the paycheck as destiny, the struggle as noble, the anxiety as inevitable. They call it reality. But reality, my friend, is not a fixed thing. It is clay in the hands of the mind that shapes it. And if you have been living within walls you did not build, it is time to realize those walls were never real. All progress begins with disbelief, not in truth, but in limitation. The man who becomes rich in spirit and in substance is the one who refuses to accept that this is just the way life is. That sentence has murdered more dreams than poverty ever could. It is the lullaby of the defeated. Yet it continues to echo because it sounds reasonable. Society teaches you to adjust, to compromise, to lower your aim until you can no longer see the horizon. And so millions live in quiet submission, grateful for crumbs, unaware that they are heirs to an infinite estate. I learned this through bitter experience. The world does not hand you permission to expand. You must claim it. The moment you stop accepting the life handed to you, you begin to create the one you were designed for. Everything that now exists, every building, every fortune, every invention, began as a thought in someone's mind, a thought that refused to bow to circumstance. The airplane defied gravity, the telephone defied distance, the light bulb defied darkness, and all of it began with a single refusal, the refusal to believe in limits. You see, what most call facts are simply beliefs repeated long enough to become public property. The man who discovers this secret becomes free. Because if beliefs built the prison, beliefs can also build the palace. The moment you question the boundaries of your reality, you begin to rewrite them. You cease to be a victim of circumstance and become the author of cause. Let this truth settle deeply into your spirit. Everything you see is the residue of thought. Every result, every failure, every triumph began in the unseen workshop of the mind. The life you are living today is the product of the thoughts you entertained yesterday. And if you wish to change the outcome, you must first change the architect, your own belief system. This is not an abstract idea. It is the most practical law of success ever discovered. What you believe, you build. What you expect, you attract. What you fear, you feed. Your mind is the power plant that turns thought into form, invisible into visible, intention into experience. If you do not take charge of this plant, someone else will. And that is the tragedy of the average life, not lack of opportunity, but lack of authorship. I tell you this not to condemn, but to awaken. For every man has been asleep at some point in his journey, hypnotized by the routines of the world. But when you awaken to the realization that belief creates reality, you inherit your divine right to choose. That is the beginning of mastery. That is the moment life begins to bend in your favor. So as you stand here at the edge of your potential, dare to question everything you've been told about how life is. Refuse the comfort of conformity. Refuse the safety of small dreams. For you were never meant to adjust to mediocrity. You were meant to rise above it, to prove that the human mind, properly directed, is the most powerful force on earth. The human mind is the greatest of all miracles, yet it is also the most neglected. Within it lies the power to build empires, heal nations, and transform a single moment of inspiration into a lifetime of prosperity. And yet, most men treat this power as if it were a toy, a casual instrument to entertain idle thoughts instead of the sacred workshop of creation. The tragedy is not that man is weak, it is that he is unaware of how powerful he already is. Your mind is both the sculptor and the stone. It molds and is molded. It responds to the images, emotions, and ideas you allow to enter its domain. What you hold consistently in consciousness, whether fear or faith, scarcity or abundance, becomes the blueprint of your destiny. The mind cannot differentiate between what is vividly imagined and what is physically experienced. It simply obeys the dominant idea. And in that truth lies either your liberation or your ruin. I have seen men of great talent fail miserably because their minds were slaves to doubt. I have also seen men of modest means rise to prominence because they mastered one skill, the skill of directing thought toward purpose. Thought, when mixed with faith and emotion, becomes a living force. It organizes circumstance, draws people, and bends the invisible toward your will. But uncontrolled thought, fueled by fear and indecision, becomes a destructive current that dismantles all you seek to build. Understand this. The mind is not a passive receiver of reality. It is the generator of reality. Every condition you experience began as a seed planted in the soil of thought. You cannot reap courage from the seeds of fear, nor wealth from the seeds of envy. The universe does not discriminate. It simply amplifies what you believe most deeply. This is the law of mental correspondence, the principle that your outer world will always reflect the pattern of your inner world. When I first discovered this, it was not from books, but from failure. I had faced loss, humiliation, and despair. But in the silence of defeat, I began to observe the machinery of my own mind, the ceaseless chatter, the hidden fears, the quiet justifications for smallness. I realized that I had built my own prison one thought at a time. And if that was true, then I also possessed the key to unlock it. That realization was worth more than all the gold I ever earned afterward. The mind operates through dual forces, conscious and subconscious. The conscious mind is your reasoning faculty, the one that plans, decides, and argues. The subconscious, however, is the silent executor. It does not question. It obeys. It is the fertile soil that accepts every seed you plant through repetition, emotion, and belief. It takes what you think about most and turns it into experience through ways you may never consciously perceive. That is why guarding your thoughts is not merely advice. It is a matter of destiny. Think of your mind as a garden. Every idea is a seed, and every emotion is water. If you plant weeds of fear and water them with worry, you will harvest disappointment. But if you plant faith, vision, and gratitude, you will harvest abundance. The gardener who neglects his field cannot blame the soil for what grows. Likewise, you cannot blame life for the fruit of your own mental neglect. So I urge you, treat your mind as sacred territory. Let no thought enter it that does not serve your highest purpose. Feed it only with what strengthens your conviction and nourishes your imagination. The difference between mediocrity and greatness is not luck, nor birth, nor opportunity. It is the discipline to master one's own mental state. When you understand the nature of the mind, you cease to be a drifter. You become a deliberate creator. You begin to walk through life not as a beggar of fortune, but as a commander of it. And from that moment on, every event, every encounter, every challenge becomes clay in your hands, material for the masterpiece you were born to shape. Every man is born with the same mysterious power, the power to choose his thoughts, and through them, the direction of his destiny. But few ever awaken to it. Most drift from one circumstance to another, blaming fate, luck, or other people for the results of their own indecision. They do not understand that the greatest gift ever given to man is the ability to say, "I will." In those two words lies the secret to all achievement, the seed of every empire, the foundation of every fortune. The world divides itself between those who drift and those who direct. The drifter lives reactively, tossed about by external events, seeking comfort and avoiding responsibility. The director, the man of will, rises each morning with a definite purpose burning in his heart and commands his mind to serve that purpose. He does not wait for favorable winds. He builds his own sails. That is the beginning of mastery, the awakening of willpower. Willpower is not mere stubbornness. It is disciplined desire. It is the ability to hold a thought long enough for it to take shape in the material world. The weak mind flits from one desire to another, distracted by the noise of circumstance. The strong mind chooses one purpose and holds it, like a lens focusing sunlight into fire. Every achievement worth naming was born from such focus, an unyielding commitment to an inner vision that refused to die. I have observed that fortune favors the man who decides quickly and stands by that decision until results appear. Indecision is the silent assassin of progress. It destroys more dreams than failure ever could. Every great builder, inventor, and leader learned to say yes or no with authority, to choose a course and refuse to waver. This mental firmness magnetizes opportunity, for the universe respects conviction and mocks hesitation. But how does one awaken this power if it lies dormant? The answer is simpler than most would believe: by practice. Each time you choose discipline over distraction, you strengthen the muscle of will. Each time you honor your word to yourself, no matter how small the promise, you build an inner reputation that cannot be shaken. You begin to trust your own command, and that self-trust becomes the engine of your destiny. Do not confuse willpower with effort alone. A man may work tirelessly and achieve little if his work is scattered. True willpower is direction, energy guided by purpose. It is the decision to say, "This is the vision that shall manifest," and then to act in harmony with that decision every hour, every day, until the unseen becomes seen. When I began teaching the principles of success, I realized that the greatest battles were not fought in boardrooms or markets, but in the chambers of the human mind. There, in silence, a man decides whether he will rise or retreat. The moment he says, "Enough of drifting, I will govern myself," the entire universe begins to shift in response. It is as if a new frequency of energy awakens within him, one that calls forth the people, ideas, and circumstances aligned with his will. Remember this: every mountain moves for the man whose intention is unwavering. Every obstacle bends before the soul that refuses to surrender. The law of nature itself bows to persistence. It may test you, delay you, even mock you, but it cannot deny you if your will remains fixed upon its aim. There will be moments when fatigue whispers, when fear knocks, when failure sneers. Those are not signs of defeat. They are invitations to deepen your resolve. Each time you rise after doubt, your will grows sharper, your faith stronger, your purpose clearer. That is the alchemy of greatness, the transformation of ordinary desire into indomitable determination. So I ask you now, have you truly decided? Have you declared within yourself that your vision shall live, regardless of time, opinion, or resistance? For once you decide, life itself reorganizes to honor that decision. The power that built worlds begins to flow through you. And from that day forward, you are no longer a victim of chance. You are a master of will. Guard your mind as you would guard your most sacred treasure, for it is infinitely more valuable than gold or land or the admiration of men. Within it lies the power that determines whether you rise in triumph or sink in defeat. The world around you is not your enemy, though it often appears so. Your true adversary is the undisciplined mind that opens its gates to every thief that knocks. The untrained mind is like a fortress with its doors unbarred, its walls unguarded, and its watchmen asleep. Every influence, every fear, every criticism, every whisper of doubt marches in unchallenged and takes residence. Look about you and you'll see the evidence of this negligence everywhere. Men who begin with noble ambitions soon lose courage after a few defeats. Women with brilliant ideas surrender them at the first sign of disapproval. Dreams, once radiant with purpose, wither in the shadow of public opinion. Why? Because they left the gates of the mind open to invasion. They allowed the noise of others to drown out the quiet voice of faith within. They forgot that the world outside can conquer you only if it first conquers your thoughts. Understand this law? No one may enter the fortress of your mind without your consent. You are the sole guardian of that gate. Every word you hear, every image you consume, every conversation you entertain carries a vibration. Each one seeks entry. Some strengthen your walls, others erode them. A casual word of discouragement, left unchallenged, can plant the seed of failure. A careless indulgence in gossip or complaint can invite the weeds of mediocrity to grow in your mental garden. The wise man selects his influences as carefully as he would choose the bricks that build his home. I have often said that thought is the only real currency in the world. It buys your future. Therefore, spend it wisely. You cannot think like a pauper and live like a king. You cannot feed your mind with poison and expect health to bloom. Every thought tolerated becomes an instruction to your subconscious, and that subconscious builds reality with perfect obedience. It will build whatever you command, whether you mean it or not. Discipline your mind as a general disciplines his soldiers. Set rules of engagement for your thoughts. When fear approaches, interrogate it. Who sent you? What right have you to enter here? When doubt attempts to cross your threshold, demand its credentials. Most of the time, these intruders have no authority but the one you grant them. They dissolve under scrutiny, for their strength exists only in secrecy. If you wish to become powerful, begin here. Develop the habit of mental vigilance. Begin each day by consciously deciding what kind of thoughts will occupy your inner world. Refuse entry to anything that does not serve your vision. Choose the company of people who uplift you, who speak in terms of possibility, who remind you of your highest nature. Keep away from the chronic complainers, the cynics, and the petty-minded, for their words are weapons wrapped in conversation. They do not merely speak into your ear, they speak into your destiny. To guard your mind is not to close it, it is to control it. The fortress of wisdom has open gates, but it has discerning guards. It welcomes truth, courage, and inspiration. It banishes fear, envy, and self-pity. This balance is the mark of maturity. The weak mind swings between naive openness and fearful isolation. The strong mind remains open but impenetrable, like a castle whose drawbridge lowers only for allies and raises instantly at the approach of deceit. Let me tell you a truth few ever grasp. Your environment is not merely physical, it is mental. The conversations you repeat, the emotions you rehearse, the stories you tell yourself, they are the atmosphere your soul breathes. A polluted mental environment suffocates vision. A purified one nourishes genius. Therefore, cleanse the air of your mind daily. Refuse to dwell on what diminishes you. Think often of what expands you. And remember, vigilance is not a one-time effort. It is a lifelong practice. The most dangerous moment for any fortress is not during battle, but after victory, when the guards grow careless. Success attracts new forms of temptation, pride, complacency, vanity. Keep your sentries awake even when peace appears secure. For as long as you live, there will be forces, both visible and unseen, seeking entry into your consciousness. Guard that gate. Rule that kingdom. For as you rule your mind, so shall you rule your world. There exists a law as certain as gravity, as constant as the rising of the sun, the law that every thought held persistently and charged with emotion transforms itself into its physical equivalent. This truth is not philosophy alone, it is science of the invisible kind. What you think repeatedly, you become. What you feel deeply, you attract. What you believe unquestionably, you create. The entire architecture of your life, from your habits to your fortune, stands upon the foundation of your dominant thoughts. Every action, every achievement, every failure is first a mental event. The thought precedes the deed as the seed precedes the harvest. To understand this is to hold the secret key to destiny. You do not improve your life by struggling against circumstance. You improve it by transforming the pattern of your thinking. The world outside you is only a mirror. If you dislike the reflection, do not strike the glass. Change the face you present to it. Thought, when repeated with intention, becomes belief. Belief, when sustained by action, becomes habit. Habit, when practiced long enough, hardens into character. And character is the unseen architect of fate. There's no shortcut around this law. You cannot plant thoughts of doubt and reap confidence, nor sow resentment and harvest peace. The mind is a faithful servant. It will grow whatever you entrust to its soil. Whether that garden blossoms or decays depends entirely upon your discipline as a mental cultivator. When I first began to study men of wealth and achievement, I discovered that every one of them had mastered this invisible law. They may have differed in education, in background, in opportunity, but all shared one thing in common. They had chosen, consciously or unconsciously, the thoughts that built their empires. Andrew Carnegie once said to me, "The mind is a magnet. It attracts that which corresponds to its dominating thoughts." I later discovered this to be not mere metaphor, but an exact description of how human success operates. Every time you dwell upon an idea, you impress it upon your subconscious mind. The subconscious, in turn, organizes every force available, internal and external, to bring that idea into existence. It influences your perception, your energy, your intuition, even your environment. It makes you notice opportunities aligned with your thoughts and blind to those that are not. To a man filled with fear, the world seems hostile. To a man filled with faith, the world seems abundant. Each one lives in the same world, yet each inhabits a different reality, built by the architecture of his mind. You cannot escape this process, but you can direct it. Most people allow their minds to think at random, never realizing that idle thoughts are creative forces as powerful as deliberate ones. Every word spoken to yourself in frustration, every mental picture of failure, every quiet repetition of "I can't" is a command to the subconscious. It takes you at your word. It does not reason. It does not argue. It builds. That is why careless thinking is dangerous. You are writing the script of your future with every sentence you whisper within. The wise man learns to reverse this current. Instead of repeating thoughts that weaken, he installs those that strengthen. He trains his mind as a craftsman trains his hands, shaping the invisible substance of belief into the structure of achievement. At first it may feel false, for the old beliefs resist their dethronement, but with repetition, with faith, with persistence, the new pattern begins to dominate. What was once effort becomes instinct. What was once affirmation becomes fact. Think of your thoughts as the raw material of life. A sculptor who wishes to carve marble must strike it with precision, not at random. So it is with you. Each thought you hold chisels the contours of your destiny. Each emotion adds detail, texture, and color to the portrait of your future. You are, whether you know it or not, the artist of your own existence. So let me ask you plainly, what are you building in the workshop of your mind? Are you constructing towers of strength or prisons of fear? The answer is written not in your wishes, but in your habits of thought. If you wish to change your life, begin by rewriting the script of your inner dialogue. Speak power into your vision. Think in terms of abundance, not lack. Act as though success were already inevitable. For thought transforms most swiftly when it is joined with belief and expressed through action. Never forget, the law of thought transformation does not rest. It works day and night, in success and in failure, in faith and in doubt. It will serve you or destroy you with the same precision. Your only choice is whether you will be its master or its victim. Choose mastery. Train your mind to think what you wish to live. For once the invisible aligns with your intention, the visible will follow as surely as dawn follows night. Most people misunderstand the phrase positive thinking. They imagine it to mean ignoring reality, pretending that difficulties do not exist, or coding every failure with false cheerfulness. That is not positive thinking. That is self-deception. True positive thinking is not an escape from reality. It is the deliberate act of mastering it. It is the armor of the soul, forged in the furnace of discipline, faith, and understanding. It does not deny the storm. It walks through it with direction and purpose. To think positively is to assume command over one's inner world, to recognize that the only true power you possess is the power of choice, the power to interpret, to respond, to transform. Every external condition in your life is neutral until your mind gives it meaning. It is not events that strengthen or weaken you, but the thoughts you choose to hold about them. A setback to one man is a signal to surrender. To another, it is the spark that ignites his next victory. The difference lies not in circumstance, but in state of mind. The weak wait for conditions to change before they change their thoughts. The strong change their thoughts, and the conditions follow. This is the secret the world never teaches, because it places responsibility squarely where it belongs, on the individual. A man who has mastered his mind cannot be enslaved by anything external. You may strip him of fortune, reputation, or comfort, but you cannot take from him the creative power of his own belief. And given time, that power will rebuild all he has lost and more. Positive thinking, in its truest form, is disciplined thinking. It is the refusal to dwell upon that which diminishes, discourages, or distracts. It is the conscious substitution of faith for fear, of purpose for pity, of clarity for confusion. It is not naive optimism. It is the most practical strategy ever discovered for survival and success. For when your mind is saturated with ideas of triumph, it directs every cell of your body, every ounce of your energy, every faculty of your imagination toward that end. You become a living magnet for opportunity. Let us be clear, no one remains positive by accident. The default state of the human mind is chaos, doubt, complaint, resistance. To maintain a positive mental attitude requires training, much like strengthening a muscle. Each time you reject a negative thought and replace it with one of power, you grow stronger. Each time you choose gratitude over resentment, discipline over indulgence, faith over fear, you raise the voltage of your spirit. Over time, this becomes your natural state, unshakable confidence grounded not in circumstance, but in mastery. When I first began studying success, I discovered that every man who accomplished anything of significance had developed what I call an undefeatable mental posture. They all believed with unwavering certainty that they would reach their objective, even when reason gave them no assurance. They refused to allow setbacks to define them. They viewed every difficulty as instruction, every delay as preparation, every rejection as redirection. To the ordinary mind, this may seem delusional. To the mind trained in truth, it is divine order at work. True positive thinking is not the denial of problems. It is the recognition of power. It is the mental discipline to focus upon solutions while others focus upon complaints. It is the spiritual strength to see beyond what is and to act in harmony with what will be. When practiced long enough, it becomes a habit of vision, an inner lens that continually reveals possibilities invisible to those blinded by fear. There's a profound peace that comes with this way of thinking. You cease to live as a victim of random fate. You begin to sense a greater rhythm, the rhythm of cause and effect, of mind-shaping matter, of unseen laws responding to belief. You no longer ask, why is this happening to me? But rather, what power within me is being called forth by this challenge? That question transforms pain into progress and frustration into fuel. Make no mistake, life will strike you. It will test your patience, your faith, your endurance, but if your mind remains rooted in the certainty that you are greater than any event, no blow can destroy you. You may bend, but you will not break. For a mind fortified by positive thought possesses the quiet strength of steel, flexible, enduring, indestructible. So train yourself daily to think positively, not because it sounds noble, but because it is the most efficient way to live. It turns obstacles into stepping stones, criticism into clarity, and delay into divine timing. True positive thinking is not wishful dreaming, it is deliberate creation. It is the art of holding your vibration above the chaos long enough for the universe to match it with form. This is the truth few ever grasp. The mind that remains positive in adversity has already conquered the external world. For when you rule your thoughts, you rule your life, and all else becomes secondary. Every great achievement begins not with luck, nor talent, nor favorable circumstance, but with desire. Not the fleeting desire of impulse, but the burning desire that refuses to extinguish even when the night is longest and the winds of doubt howl at the door. Desire is the starting point of all success, the seed of every invention, every discovery, every fortune ever created. Nothing moves until desire gives it motion. The first act of creation is always mental, and the fire that ignites that act is the definite purpose that consumes hesitation. A man without a definite purpose drifts as a ship without a rudder. He may work hard, he may be sincere, but his energy is scattered, his results accidental. He rises and falls with the tides of circumstance, never realizing that he was meant to command them. To live without purpose is to live without power. The moment you fix your mind upon a single clear objective, the scattered forces within you align like iron filings to a magnet. You begin to attract ideas, opportunities, and allies that were invisible before. The world does not yield its treasures to the curious, it yields to the committed. When I studied the lives of successful men, I found that every one of them was possessed by a consuming desire. It was not mild interest, it was obsession. Carnegie desired to build an empire of steel that would uplift the common man. Edison desired to harness light. Ford desired to place a motor car in every home. Their desires were not selfish whims. They were definite, service-driven aims so intense that the entire universe seemed to conspire in their favor. They lived not by reaction, but by design. Their purpose became their compass, their discipline, their strength. Understand this. Desire is the fuel, but purpose is the direction. Desire alone, without a definite aim, burns wildly and dies. Purpose channels that fire into creation. A clear purpose transforms energy into order, imagination into structure, chaos into progress. The difference between the dreamer and the doer lies not in inspiration, but in focus. One imagines what could be, the other decides what must be. Once your desire becomes definite, once you can name it, define it, and see it in your mind as already accomplished, you have summoned one of the greatest powers known to man, the power of intention crystallized. But this is where most fail. They do not decide what they truly want. They borrow desires from others, from parents, from society, from comparison. They chase approval instead of purpose. And so their energy leaks, their confidence fades, and their life becomes a performance instead of a mission. The universe cannot reward indecision. It responds only to clarity. You must state what you want in no uncertain terms and hold that image in your mind as real. Think it, speak it, write it, dream it, see it with your inner vision until it is more familiar than the present reality. Then act as though it were impossible to fail. Do not confuse greed with desire. True desire is not about possession. It is about expression. It is the natural impulse of life seeking fuller manifestation through you. When your desire is rooted in service, in building, improving, uplifting, it becomes self-sustaining. It gathers strength from adversity instead of losing it. The man who desires only for himself burns out quickly. The man who desires to create for others taps into an infinite reservoir of energy. When your purpose becomes definite, life rearranges itself around it. Circumstances, once obstacles, become tools. Time, once wasted, becomes your ally. Even failure becomes instructive, sharpening your resolve. It is as if every atom of the universe recognizes your intent and begins to align with it. But you must stay true to that purpose. The law does not serve the fickle or the faint-hearted. It serves the steadfast. Ask yourself with sincerity, what do I truly desire? Not what the world says I should want, not what others expect, but what makes my heart race and my soul expand. When you find that, guard it as sacred. Build your daily life around it. Think from it, not toward it. Speak as if it already were. Act as if it were impossible to fail. For purpose is the compass that guides the will, and desire is the fire that fuels it. When the two unite under the discipline of faith and action, no power on earth can stop your advance. Mountains move, doors open, and what once seemed impossible becomes inevitable. This is not magic. It is law, and those who understand it no longer chase success. They attract it because they have aligned themselves with the very principle by which all success is born. So let this be written in your heart. A definite purpose backed by burning desire is the beginning of all greatness. Without it, even genius drifts. With it, even the ordinary becomes unstoppable. Every dream, no matter how grand, remains only a shadow of possibility until it is given substance through action. Thought is the blueprint, action is the builder. And the bridge between thought and reality is persistence. The quiet, tireless force that separates the wishful from the accomplished, the dreamer from the doer. The world pays no rewards for intentions alone. It honors only those who act. I have often said that there is a hidden weakness in the minds of most men. They expect results without endurance. They start with enthusiasm, but their fire fades at the first sign of resistance. They confuse inspiration with discipline. Inspiration is a spark. Discipline is the steady flame that endures the wind. And persistence is the will that guards that flame when the night grows cold and the world grows silent. You see, every worthwhile goal will test you. Life will measure how deeply you desire what you claim to want. It will send delays, failures, and disappointments, not to defeat you, but to refine you. The weak interpret these as signs to quit. The strong understand them as invitations to grow. Every setback conceals a seed of equal or greater advantage, but only the persistent discover it. There is a law, subtle yet absolute. Whatever you hold in your mind and pursue with consistent effort must eventually yield to you. The universe has no choice but to conform to sustained, directed energy. But the key word is sustained. A man who labors intensely one day and then drifts aimlessly for a week will achieve nothing. The mind, like the body, grows strong through repetition, through daily exertion. Each act of persistence is a deposit in the account of success. When the balance becomes great enough, withdrawal is inevitable. Remember this truth. The most powerful men in history were not necessarily the most gifted, but the most enduring. Edison made thousands of failed attempts before his filament glowed. Lincoln lost more elections than most men ever enter, yet his resolve only hardened. These men understood that failure was not an end, but a teacher. Each obstacle refined their strategy, strengthened their will, and purified their faith. Persistence is genius in motion, slow, steady, unstoppable. There will come a time when the excitement of the beginning fades and results still seem distant. That is the testing ground where greatness is forged. Most men turn back there. The few who keep going, one more hour, one more call, one more attempt, discover that the universe bends to the will that refuses to bend. They cross an invisible threshold where resistance gives way to momentum and effort becomes flow. Do not wait for motivation to act. Act until motivation appears. Movement generates emotion. Progress ignites enthusiasm. If you wait for inspiration before you move, you will spend your life standing still. Begin where you are, with what you have, and do what you can. Perfection is not required, only persistence. The man who advances one step each day, without fail, will surpass the man who sprints once a month. Action must become habit, and habit must become identity. When persistence ceases to be a decision and becomes a reflex, success ceases to be uncertain and becomes inevitable. It is not enough to work hard when conditions are ideal. You must continue when fatigue whispers and results seem invisible. That is the crucible where power is born. Let me share a truth the impatient rarely learn. The delay between sowing and reaping is the most sacred part of the process. It is there that your faith is tested and your inner world is reordered to match the vision you hold. The man who persists not only achieves his goal, but becomes worthy of it. For persistence does not merely deliver results, it transforms character. So resolve within yourself now that you will not be among the quitters. Write it upon your heart that you will act daily, persist continually, and rise each time you fall. When doubt comes, and it will, remember that the law of success favors the man who stays longest in the field. Do not ask for an easier path, ask for greater endurance. Do not pray for fewer obstacles, pray for stronger faith. Because in the end, persistence is more than a habit. It is a declaration of belief. Every act of perseverance says to the universe, I will not be denied. And when that conviction burns long enough and bright enough, no force in existence can extinguish it. The mountain will move, the opportunity will appear, and the dream that once seemed distant will stand before you as fact, the reward of steady hands and an unyielding heart. The mind, like nature itself, abhors a vacuum. You cannot simply remove a negative thought and leave its space empty. That void will soon be filled by whatever influence stands nearest, and more often than not, it will be fear, doubt, or confusion. The only way to expel weakness is to replace it with strength. This is what I call the law of substitution, the art of consciously choosing a higher thought to displace a lower one. You cannot think two thoughts at the same time. Therefore, the surest way to banish one is to occupy the mind with another. When you find yourself filled with anxiety, do not fight it directly. Replace it with faith. When you feel anger rising, substitute understanding. When you are tempted by procrastination, replace it with purposeful action. The battle is never against the negative emotion itself, but against the vacancy it seeks to occupy. The strong man does not resist weakness. He redirects it. Every emotion is energy, and energy, when rightly directed, becomes power. I learned long ago that thought cannot be destroyed, only transformed. The mind does not respond to commands of don't or stop. Tell a child not to think of a red apple, and instantly the image appears. The same principle governs your own mind. You cannot say, I will not fear, without strengthening the vibration of fear. But if you say, I am courageous, and repeat it with conviction, your mental picture changes. Slowly, the image of courage replaces the image of fear, and the emotion follows the picture. You have not suppressed weakness. you have transmuted it. This law operates constantly, whether you acknowledge it or not. Every time you replay a memory of failure, you reinforce the neural path of defeat. Every time you imagine success vividly, you strengthen the pathway of victory. The mind, in its obedience, does not question your selection, it amplifies it. Thus, your task is simple: to choose deliberately what you wish to grow. The gardener who wishes to rid his soil of weeds does not pull them endlessly, he plants something stronger. So must you. Whenever a destructive thought appears, and they always will, do not wrestle with it. Replace it instantly with a constructive affirmation, something alive with meaning. Say aloud, "I am guided by strength and clarity." Repeat it until your mind obeys. The act may seem mechanical at first, but repetition transforms command into conviction, and conviction is the language the subconscious understands. In my years of study, I discovered that the great achievers all practiced this law intuitively. They were not immune to fear, they simply refused to entertain it. When failure approached, they substituted persistence. When doubt whispered, they replied with vision. When fatigue set in, they replaced it with purpose. To the outside world, it appeared they were made of steel. In truth, they were masters of substitution, men who had trained their minds to pivot instantly from weakness to strength. Remember, your subconscious is like fertile soil. It grows whatever you plant. You can feed it the seeds of victory or the weeds of victimhood, but it will never argue with you. It will make either real. The thoughts you repeat most often become its orders, and those orders will shape your character, your habits, and your destiny. To change your life, therefore, you must change your mental inventory. Each day, review what occupies your inner world. Replace complaint with gratitude. Replace confusion with clarity. Replace "I can't" with "I am learning how." This simple practice, done consistently, can rebuild an entire life. The law of substitution demands awareness, but awareness grows with use. In the beginning, you will catch yourself often drifting into worry, replaying regret, indulging in criticism. Do not condemn yourself. Simply replace. Like a musician tuning an instrument, each adjustment brings harmony closer. One day, without noticing, you will find that your habitual thoughts are aligned with strength. Fear will knock, but find no answer. Doubt will whisper, but hear only silence. And here lies the beauty of this law. As you learn to replace weakness within, you also begin to transform the world around you. The vibrations of your dominant thoughts extend outward, attracting people and events that mirror your new pattern. The same energy that once drew obstacles now draws allies. The same environment that once discouraged now inspires. You have not changed the world. You have changed the lens through which you meet it. The law of substitution is the essence of mastery. It teaches that power is never lost, only redirected. Every dark emotion carries within it the potential for light. Every failure contains the seed of triumph. You need only decide what will occupy your mental throne. The mind will always serve its master faithfully. Make sure that master is you. No man becomes strong by avoiding difficulty. Strength is the offspring of struggle, wisdom, the child of pain. The world would have you believe that adversity is misfortune, that hardship is punishment and failure a sign to retreat. But this belief is the poison that has weakened generations. In truth, adversity is the universe's greatest teacher. It strips away illusion, polishes character, and reveals the iron within the soul. A man's real education begins not when life flatters him, but when it tests him. I have walked through the valley of defeat, loss, and humiliation, and I tell you without hesitation, those were my richest seasons. They forced me to stop blaming and start building. They showed me that every trial carries a message written in the language of growth. The man who suffers with awareness does not ask, "Why me?" He asks, "What is this teaching me? What strength is this calling forth?" When you ask that question sincerely, suffering ceases to be punishment. It becomes preparation. Every challenge, every disappointment, every betrayal contains within it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. This is not poetic optimism. It is law. But the seed cannot grow while you curse the soil. You must plant it, water it with faith, and let time reveal its harvest. When you face a setback, understand that the universe is not against you. It is training you. The pain that bends the weak is the same force that forges the strong. The fire that destroys straw tempers steel. When Thomas Edison's laboratory burned to the ground, along with years of work, he stood before the ruins and said, "Thank God all our mistakes were burned up. Now we can start fresh." That is the voice of mastery. The loss did not define him, his response did. For it is never the event that determines your fate, it is your reaction to it. Two men may face the same storm. One curses the wind and collapses. The other adjusts his sails and discovers new lands. The difference lies entirely in mindset. Suffering is sacred when endured with purpose. It purifies desire. It burns away vanity, pride, and false ambition until only truth remains. The desire to grow, to serve, to become more. Many seek success but fear the struggle that precedes it. They want harvest without plowing, wealth without sacrifice, mastery without discipline, but nature grants no such bargain. Every ascent requires resistance. Every crown carries its weight. And the one who endures that weight without complaint becomes unshakable. There is a law in motion beneath every pain. Opposition exists to awaken potential. Muscles grow only through strain. Courage reveals itself only in fear. Faith strengthens only in uncertainty. When you are tested, you are being invited to ascend. Life is not punishing you, it is promoting you. The question is whether you will recognize the opportunity disguised in the challenge. I have known men who lost everything, fortune, reputation, comfort, yet from the ashes of their ruin arose a greater wisdom, a deeper peace, a truer prosperity. And I have known others who, though never outwardly tested, remained poor in spirit all their days. The difference was not circumstance, but interpretation. One saw in suffering the gateway to strength, the other saw only injustice. The former mastered life, the latter remained its victim. There will be seasons when pain feels endless, when all effort seems unrewarded, when even faith flickers like a dying flame. In those moments, remember this: the darkest night always precedes the dawn. Endurance is not simply the act of surviving, it is the refusal to surrender meaning. Hold fast to the knowledge that every difficulty carries design. Let it refine you, not define you. When you can look at adversity and say, "This is my training ground," you cease to be afraid of it. You begin to see pain not as an enemy, but as an ally in disguise, a stern but faithful teacher. The man who welcomes discipline welcomes destiny, for they are one and the same. Through suffering rightly understood, you gain mastery over yourself, and once you have mastered yourself, no external power can enslave you. So, when the storm comes, and it will, stand tall within it. Do not waste your strength begging for an easier life. Use that strength to become a greater man. For the ultimate reward of adversity is not what you gain, but who you become. The diamond owes its brilliance to pressure, the oak its strength to the storm. And you too will owe your greatness to the trials that tried to break you but failed. Accept this law and you will never fear difficulty again. You will meet it as an equal, as a partner in your progress. And from that moment, suffering will lose its sting and become what it was always meant to be, the fire that reveals your divine design. You may possess the finest mind, the noblest purpose, and the strongest will, yet if you neglect the company you keep and the influences you allow, your progress will be quietly sabotaged. No man rises far above the quality of the environment he sustains. The soil in which a tree grows determines its fruit. So too does the mental soil in which your ideas take root determine their harvest. You cannot expect your mind to flourish in the shade of doubt, gossip, and complaint. Greatness requires sunlight, the light of faith, ambition, and constructive influence. Look carefully at your surroundings, both physical and social. Are they feeding your vision or draining it? Every word spoken into your ears, every image that reaches your eyes, every person who shares your time is planting something in your subconscious. Most people are careless gardeners. They allow weeds of criticism, envy, and fear to overrun the garden of their thought. They do not realize that mediocrity is contagious, that the energy of those who settle for less can infect even the strongest will, if not guarded against? When I was young, I discovered that success was not merely a result of what one did, but of what one absorbed. To live among people who constantly discuss failure is to breathe the air of limitation. To read only of calamity and corruption is to feed the mind on decay. The human mind is impressionable. It cannot remain neutral. Whatever it hears often enough, it begins to believe. Whatever it believes long enough, it begins to create. This is why every man seeking greatness must become a curator of his environment, choosing with intention what enters his mental gates. Do not misunderstand me. Protecting your environment does not mean withdrawing from the world, but governing your exposure to it. You can walk among the mediocre without becoming one of them, provided you keep your mental armor intact. This armor is made of discernment. It is the quiet strength that allows you to say, "This conversation weakens me. I will not entertain it. This influence distracts me. I will not allow it. This idea does not serve my vision. I will replace it." Such discipline may appear harsh to those who live carelessly, but to the man of purpose it is sacred duty. Association is the silent architect of destiny. Choose carefully the people who share your hours, for their thoughts echo in your own. The mind unconsciously harmonizes with the dominant vibration around it. That is why the poor often remain among the poor, not from lack of potential, but from the gravitational pull of shared belief. Likewise, the ambitious flourish among the ambitious because inspiration circulates like oxygen. You do not need perfect company, but you must seek progressive company, those who talk of growth, creation, and ideas rather than complaint, fear, and failure. Every conversation is a form of nourishment. Ask yourself, does this dialogue strengthen my spirit or deplete it? Does this company inspire action or justify inaction? If it does not elevate, it contaminates. Protect your inner world with the same vigilance a king guards his throne. For what enters your mind today becomes your circumstance tomorrow. Even your physical surroundings influence your vibration. Disorder in your environment breeds disorder in your thoughts. Keep your space clean, purposeful, and alive with reminders of what you intend to create. Let your surroundings reflect your future, not your past. Hang words that uplift, books that teach, symbols that strengthen faith. The mind takes cues from what it sees. Let it see greatness everywhere it turns. And if you find yourself alone on this path, do not despair. Solitude, when filled with right thought, is more fertile than the company of 1,000 doubters. Many of the greatest thinkers, inventors, and leaders have walked seasons of isolation to protect their vision while it was still fragile. The seed must remain underground for a time before it can face the sun. Use such solitude to deepen your conviction, to refine your ideas, and to prepare for the moment when your environment will align with your new vibration. You owe it to yourself and to your destiny to prune your influences with courage. Let go of the conversations that limit, the habits that dull, the friendships that drain. You cannot cultivate clarity in a field overgrown with noise. It is not cruelty to protect your peace, it is responsibility. The gardener who refuses to pull weeds condemns his own harvest. Remember always, the mind is a garden and influence is its climate. Choose your weather wisely. Surround yourself with people, ideas, and environments that breathe faith into your lungs and conviction into your heart. The moment you do, your inner world will begin to bloom again. And as surely as night follows day, your outer world will follow suit. For no man's life can remain barren whose mind is in full blossom. There comes a defining moment in every life when knowledge is no longer enough, when thinking, planning, and hoping must give way to a single irrevocable decision. That moment is the true birth of power. For a man is not defined by what he knows, nor even by what he desires, but by what he decides to become, and by what he refuses ever again to be. Decision is the switch that releases dormant energy, the command that rallies the sleeping forces of faith, courage, and will into unified motion. I have watched countless men stand at this crossroads, some hesitating, waiting for a sign from fortune or approval from others. They wait, and life passes. The few who decide, absolutely without condition, step into a flow of power that astonishes even themselves. When you decide with conviction, the world rearranges itself around that decision. Circumstances bend, obstacles yield, opportunities appear. Nature respects decisiveness because it mirrors her own law. Movement creates momentum, and momentum transforms potential into destiny. Understand this truth. Indecision is the root of mediocrity. The man who vacillates between faith and fear, between purpose and hesitation, dilutes his own strength. The mind cannot serve two masters. It either obeys clarity or confusion. When you make a definite decision, when you say, "From this day forward, I will live by design, not by default," you unify every part of your being toward a single aim. The scattered energies that once weakened you converge into unstoppable force. Do not wait for perfect conditions. They do not exist. Decision creates its own perfection. The most powerful men in history did not act because they were ready. They acted because they refused to wait any longer. They understood that hesitation is the silent thief of destiny. The soil of opportunity dries for those who stand too long upon it. But the man who plants boldly, who declares his purpose and moves without delay, invites the laws of the universe to assist his cause. A true decision is more than a statement. It is a covenant. It is an inner declaration to your own soul. I will no longer betray my potential. I will no longer live as if I am powerless. I will no longer allow fear to lead my choices. When you make such a decision truly and completely, something awakens within you, a quiet certainty that cannot be shaken by circumstance. You cease to chase validation and begin to embody vision. You cease to seek permission and begin to walk in authority. You stop waiting for the right time and become the reason it is right. From that point forward, your world changes. Your voice grows steady, your step deliberate, your eyes clear. You begin to attract people and events that align with your new vibration. What once resisted you now assists you. What once frightened you now fuels you. Decision reorganizes the very chemistry of the soul. It is the moment when man and his destiny finally shake hands. But remember, a decision unacted upon is still a wish. To decide is to move. To move with faith, persistence, and clarity, even when no applause accompanies your steps. For the act of movement, consistent and deliberate, is how a decision takes form in the physical world, and each small act compounds until what was once intention becomes inevitability. So I ask you now, will you return to the familiar voice of doubt, or will you rise into the mind of mastery? Will you drift another year, waiting for permission, or will you seize this moment and claim your inheritance, the right to think, act, and live as the architect of your own destiny? The choice, as it has always been, is yours. Decide, not tomorrow, not someday, now. Let your decision ring through your consciousness with the certainty of truth. I am no longer a victim of thought. I am its master. I am unshakable. I am unstoppable. I am unbreakable. And when that conviction becomes the rhythm of your mind, the world will bend to your design because the universe itself obeys the sound of a decided soul. Now, my friend, if these words have stirred something within you, if they have reminded you of your own hidden strength, do not let this moment pass. Act upon it. Subscribe to this channel so that you may continue feeding your mind with truth that empowers. Press the like button as a declaration of decision, a small act of alignment with your higher self. Click the bell icon so each new lesson finds you at the right time when your spirit is ready for it. And share your reflections in the comments below. Write what decision you are making today, for the act of declaring your intent gives it power. You are no longer a spectator in life's theater. You are its author, its director, its lead. And the next chapter begins with one simple command. Decide.